You are listening to Small Business Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives small business owners the straight talk on productivity, time management, business systems, leading your teams, strategic decision-making, and mindset. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the productivity specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Small Business Straight Talk podcast. Today is episode 390, From Burnout to Boundaries, Behind the Business with Jude Charles. If you're a small business owner who wants to learn effective business strategies, improve time management, and elevate productivity to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. I am so excited to introduce to you something new to the show. Our Behind the Business series. In these special episodes, I'm sitting down with fellow small business owners to pull back the curtain on how they actually run their business. We're talking origin stories, tough challenges, real breakthroughs, and what they're working on now, not just the highlight reels. My goal is to give you an honest, behind-the-scenes look at how others are navigating the same growth journey you're on, with plenty of straight talking lessons that you can apply to your own business. Today, we get to meet our guest, Jude Charles. For 19 years, Jude has been producing documentaries for entrepreneurs. He has produced stories for Google, Steve Harvey, and dozens of other visionary CEOs. Jude is the author of Dramatic Demonstration. This book is a roadmap that teaches you how to dig deep to finding compelling stories that no one else knows, and then leveraging those stories to grow your business. Jude's mission is to lead and empower entrepreneurs to have relentless, unwavering courage. So now let's meet our guest and get to the straight talk. Welcome to the podcast, Jude. How are you today?
I am doing amazing, Amber, and I am excited that we are finally here making this podcast happen. It's been a long time coming.
I agree. I feel the same way. And I remember when I asked you, I'm like, I guess I was like, how did this not happen already? And I was the one that made the ask. I'm so glad you're here. So for my audience that does not know who you are, and I want you just to share with us what we didn't get to hear in the official bio. So share with me a little bit about your team now, your company, and then we're going to take it way back. But I kind of want to start with like a little overview so that they get a feel for you and your business.
Yeah, so I run a video production company where I help entrepreneurs tell their story. And I do that primarily through creating a documentary. I create documentaries for entrepreneurs. 2 years, I've been in business 19 years now, but 2 years ago, I made a pivot into strictly working in the design world. So I work with interior designers, architects, and builders. And it's the same thing, helping them create their story. I have filmed with our good friend, Luann Nigera, of A Well-Designed Business, and currently filming Brad Levitt's docuseries, which I know Brad's been on the podcast as well. But again, I help them tell their story. And it's the story that pulls back the veil of who they are. It's not just focused on their business. Yes, we highlight that, but it's more so about who they are personally as a leader, as a father or mother, as a CEO. Who are they? Many people who have been in business for a long time focus a lot on the business part. They focus on showing you what they can do, but very few people tell you who they are. They tell you about the lived experiences that they have gone through that shape who they are today. Those are the stories I look to pull out to be able to allow someone to meet you before they've ever met you, and most importantly, build trust.
Incredible. Yeah, we run in very similar circles. You were telling me just who you're currently working with, and I'm like, okay, so two are a client, one's been on the podcast. Like, we do run in circles. And I actually have gotten the pleasure of getting to know you and having lots of conversations with you. And I've told you this, I even told my husband, I'm like, your energy reminds me of my husband's energy, just calm, peaceful. And so I've always enjoyed our conversations. And during those times, I got to hear some very interesting stories. And so I invited you on not just to hear about the business, and I do want to continue hearing about the business and where it's at now. But I thought that some of the stories, and I'm sure I'll hear new ones, that you shared with me is such a great example of the actual work you do with your clients. Like it just drew me in. I remember being over dinner with you, hearing some of these stories, and I'm like, tell me more. And then I'm like, of course he's a storyteller. And but it worked in real life. And
Yeah.
there was just so many lessons and inspiration. And so I want to take it all the way back to one of the stories that I heard from high school. Now,
Yeah.
it's kind of common of like people think, well, you're a business owner. You were always a business owner. You must have had a lemonade stand. Like this is just running in your blood. That was not my journey. And I don't think it was yours. So I would just love for you to just start off. Where do you think this all started for you and how now you're in business for 19 years?
It started for me really, and I don't know if I've shared this story with you, but it started when I was 8 years old. I would come home from school at 8 years old and I would lock myself in a room and I would write. And from the age of 8 till about 11, I wrote these 100-page books of what I thought my future life would look like. So I wrote
What?
books,
No, you
yeah.
did not tell me this.
So I wrote books like The Police Life of Jude Charles because I wanted to be a police officer. I wrote books like The Baseball Life of Jude Charles because I had just finished reading the Jackie Robinson biography. And I was like, well, what would life look like if I was a baseball player? In all, I wrote 11 books. And it wasn't until I got into high school that I started to realize, I took this TV production class and I realized I could turn these stories I was writing as a kid into actual movies or films. And I had a teacher, Mrs. Donnelly, who taught me everything she knew about video production. This is my junior year. And at the end of that school year, she looked at me and she was like, Jude, you're really talented at video production. You should start a business. Now, Amber, I'm the youngest of 10 children. My father worked as a construction worker. My mom worked at a chair factory. There were no entrepreneurs in my family.
Hmm.
And so when Mrs. Donnelly said that to me, I wasn't sure how to respond. But I'll never forget the following day, May 5th, 2006, from the day that she said this to me, May 5th, 2006, she came into the classroom with a yellow envelope. And I was like, what is this? She handed it to me. And when I looked inside, it was my very first set of business cards. And that's when I got started in business 19 years ago. I was 17 years old, 19 years ago, starting this same video production company that I'm running now. Different name at the time, but same company where I am helping entrepreneurs tell their story.
Incredible. Looking back at that moment, what do you think your teacher saw in you that made her, of all the kids, look at you and say, I think you can be an entrepreneur and here are your business cards?
I think it was hunger. So I was a sponge. If there was something I was learning, like I mentioned when I was a really young kid, learning how to write, if there was something I was learning, I would do it relentlessly. I wouldn't just do it that one time and be like, oh, that was cool, and then move on. If I really liked it, which I did like video production, I just I went all in. I would stay after school learning more about video production. I would take the initiative sometimes to take the camera out and just go film certain things that were happening around school. In that video production class, our primary focus was on what was called the morning announcements. I'm not sure if schools still have it now, but like the morning announcements, right?
Yeah. My son even,
And
they have a video morning announcement in my son's school as well. Hmm.
right, so that was our primary focus. And again, it was just one of those things that I went all in. I wanted to learn more about. Even I think it was my last 2 years. For sure, my senior year, we have OJT, on the job training, right? That the final two semesters where you can choose to leave school early. Well, I chose that I would take video production as my OJT. I was just very, very all in on it.
Yeah.
And I think because my teacher saw that, she saw the hunger and she saw that maybe I didn't know any better about that I could make money from doing this thing, that she was like, no, you should definitely go ahead and just start a business now because you clearly have a talent for it.
Yeah. So what's interesting is that the clients that you serve and the clients that I serve, they all have a special skill set. And then they kind of for most of them, accidentally became a business owner, right?
Yeah.
Because you could have used your skill set and made a really good living and have a career and gone and done that. But that's not what she said. She said, not only do you have talent, but I think you could do this for yourself and start your own business.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, you mentioned when you just shared that story of like, you didn't actually know what that meant. So how quickly did you figure out what that meant? And what did it look like then? And then how did that transition over time, your own experience and definition of being an entrepreneur or a business owner?
I wish I learned quickly. It took me 5 years before I ever began to even really understand what it means to be an entrepreneur, how to sell, how to market. It was 2011 that I woke up to the sounds of chains hitting the floor, and it had always been a nightmare for me to hear these chains hitting the floor. When I jumped up out of bed, I went and looked out the front window. What it was a tow truck driver coming to repossess my car for the second time in 8 months. I'm 5 years in business, and I'm struggling to make $20,000 a year. I'm struggling to keep up with bills. And I go back in my room, and I'm sitting on the edge of the bed. I have my head in my hands in a soup of anxiety. And I'll never forget that a client at the time, her name is Keisha Dior, she called me. I'm sitting on the edge of my bed, 40 minutes probably. And she calls me. And at first I'm thinking, do I even want to answer this call? Because I just got my car repossessed. I am thinking about quitting and giving up because clearly I'm not making enough money and I've given this a good 5-year run. But I decided to pick up Amber, and she picks up when I say hello, she's like, Jude, you won't believe it. You won't believe it. I'm like, what happened, Keisha? She said, I just got off the phone with my accountant and he said we made $1 million. Now, the backstory to that is that with Keisha, I had been creating a documentary for her for the past year where she was launching her business from the ground up. It was a cosmetic business. She was selling blue, purple, green lipstick. And in 1 year, Keisha had made $1 million of launching the business. In 5 years, I was still struggling to make $20,000 a year. And I remember thinking to myself, there's two routes I can take from this phone call. It's
Yeah.
either here's proof that I don't know what I'm doing because here's a client who's made $1 million in a year. I'm still struggling to make $20,000 in 5 years. Or here's proof that I've created value for a client. What if I just went back and learned sales and marketing so that I can pitch how to get paid the right amount of value for what I'm creating? For context, Keisha Dior only paid me $3,000 for that documentary, yet she
Mm,
made $1 million, right? And I decided to take the second route. I went back and learned sales and marketing. That is when, for me, I began to see the shift in business that I wasn't, as much as I was helping my clients tell their story, I wasn't telling my own story, right? And
interesting.
it it was the biggest lesson I needed to learn because there was no difference really between me and Keisha. Besides the fact that we were selling different things, like she was selling a product, I was selling a service. The biggest difference with Keisha was that she would wake up every morning, and at the time she only used Twitter. She would wake up every morning and she would promote and market her business. She would be speaking to her audience. She would let them know whether or not she had a new product, why she created the product, even the whole journey of like creating the business she took them through. They call it building in public, but Keisha was doing that back in 2010, 2011, right?
Yeah.
And so that was for me when I began to see a shift. It took 5 years. It wasn't quick. It wasn't right away. I think some of it was that I just was naive to think all I did need was camera and business cards, and the clients would come. That was the furthest thing from what I needed.
Yeah. So when you went back and learned sales and marketing, it was all about telling your story. But now
Yeah,
you have to tell your story.
yeah,
So was this when you were like the first time in your clients, like sitting in your client's shoes of like, wow, this could be really vulnerable. This could be uncomfortable to show behind the scenes or who I am. Because as you were explaining your business earlier, the thought that crossed my mind is, even for myself, like the thing you do, the results you get, the thing like, I got that. But as soon as you're like, come in my kitchen, sit at my table, interview my 15-year-old. Like, that's really vulnerable, right? And I know
Yeah.
that because actually you're working with one of my clients and we were jokingly talking over dinner. She's like, and I don't know what my teenage kid's going to say to Jude, right? So, okay, so it's a very vulnerable thing, but what was that experience being kind of your own client way back then when you had to tell your own story?
Yeah, I'll never forget the course. I took a course called Earn 1K. And that course, the premise behind it was if you learn how to make your first $1,000, all you have to do is repeat it. Now, of course, I had already made $1,000, but I needed to learn how to make it the right way. And in that course, it teaches you not only how to tell your story, but to tell the story from the position of the client seeing value in that story. One of the stories I never shared in the beginning was that story of Mrs. Donnelly. Because I was like, big deal, a teacher gave me business cards. Whereas when I began to share it, I realized people would not only lean in, but they would ask more questions about this teacher giving me business cards. Back then, I used to assume that vulnerability or opening yourself up was this thing that exposed you. It put your deepest, darkest secrets out there, or it put your weaknesses out there. When in reality, that what it means to expose is to bring to light, right? And sometimes you can bring to light not just your weaknesses, but your strengths. You
Mm-hmm.
can bring to light the lessons you've learned on your journey of whether it's being an entrepreneur or, for me, in my case, what it means to really tell my story. I
Mm-hmm.
lean into telling my story every chance that I get now
Yeah.
because I have seen it work in my business. I don't just help entrepreneurs tell their story. And help them grow their business. I've seen how it's helped me grow my business. And so it is a vulnerable thing, though, I think the biggest thing is you don't know what to share sometimes. You don't know if it's worth sharing even, right?
Right.
And so there's a story about burnout for me. October 2020, I woke up and could not move. My eyes opened, but from my neck down, I could not physically move my body. And I stayed like that for a good 2 hours. And I didn't realize until later on that I was having a panic attack. And then I ended up getting diagnosed with burnout, depression, and anxiety. Now, it took me 2 years to recover, but in the midst of recovering, September 2021, I go to the grocery store one day and I am feeling worthless this day. I'm feeling like I'm in therapy sessions and I'm trying to recover from burnout. And my therapist is telling me what worked in your 20s when I started the business is no longer going to work in your 30s. Like, you've got to find a different rhythm. And I prided myself on the rhythm and going hardcore and just working long hours. But after I think about 15 years of business at that point, I've got to work differently now. But I don't know what
Right.
that means because I've tied my identity to the business and the work that I was doing
And being a hard worker.
and being a hard worker.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I go to this grocery store, I get out of the car, I'm walking to the front door of this grocery store, and to my left, I hear a loud bang. And when I look over, this is not an exaggeration. It is a white Tesla car on top of another car. And so I go running over. There are two guys standing outside. This Tesla car is on top of another car, but leaning on a third car. And I'm like, did anyone call 911? No one responds. I asked again, did anyone call 911? Well, Amber, I ended up calling 911. And what I didn't know, once the fire truck arrived and they're trying to figure out how to maneuver this crazy situation, what I didn't know is in the third car, where this white Tesla is kind of leaning on, there are three people trapped in there. And luckily, everyone, including the Tesla driver, made it out safe. But what that helped me realize was who Jude Charles is. As much as I tied my identity to my work and to how hard I work, that's not who Jude Charles is. Jude Charles is this person that is calm in the midst of chaos, that can help people when someone else is like they're flustered and they don't know what to do. My mission and my purpose and mission is to lead and empower entrepreneurs to have relentless courage. And I hadn't really sat back and thought about all these small moments of courage that I've had to have over the years that truly embodies who I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I share that story not only online or with clients or even on this podcast. I share it because I know what it's like to, one, go through burnout, but I also share it to know what it's like to feel worthless and to feel like, wait, I have to change now? What does that mean towards my identity? That so many entrepreneurs go through. It's a vulnerable thing. But I also think it serves a purpose. It serves a purpose to communicate to the client, one, I'm just like you. I've been on the journey just like you, but I've also overcome. And if I'm going to walk you through this process in our work together, I'm not just asking you to have relentless courage for the sake of it. I'm asking it because I know what it's like to walk that out too.
Yeah. I believe we had a conversation about our businesses are completely different. But the thing that I realized talking to you was that we both can see our clients and we see the thing that they can't see in themselves sometimes. So, as a coach, I'm always looking for my clients' strengths because that's what you want to magnify in business is to do more of that. And for you as a storyteller to help your clients, you're like the thing they think that is completely normal or was right in front of their face all the time, like being courageous and calm when everyone else is flustered. It's so easy to take the things that are just who we are and just I don't know, like my hands flipping, no one can see that. We're on a podcast, so I'm like a lack of words, but like we can just like dismiss it. Like
Mhm.
it's just not that important. But oftentimes it does take someone from the outside with a clear perspective to shine a light, to use your words, on the things that make us unique and our strengths. And for you, the gift was that you were in a time of reflection. You were in a time of searching for, what is your identity? But it was there all along. It was waiting for you to uncover. And
Right.
that's what that gift, that's what I believe after the conversations we've had over, I don't know, the last couple of years is like, that's the gift you give your clients is shining a light on the thing that is right in front of them.
Yeah, shining a light on the thing they take for granted, I think.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that clients downplay their strengths or downplay the experiences that they've gone through. So there are three ideas or three things that I look for, what I call the three rules for authentic storytelling. There is the lived experience. So what experiences have you gone through that have helped shape who you are, what you're about, why you think the way that you think? There's the emotion that comes from that lived experience. So what happened to you and how did you feel about what happened to you? Plus the quirks that you have, right? The tone that you have, the quirks, the vulnerability. There's moments where like clients will tell certain stories and you'll see them just they're awakened and they're alive. And it's like, okay, wait, why are you so excited to tell me that story right now? Right.
Yeah.
And then there's the lived experience, there's the emotion, but then there's something that you actually mentioned that I look for. It's uncovering the evidence. And what I mean by that is, what is the lesson you learned from that lived experience? Because that lesson becomes proof that someone else on the journey can get through it as well, or that it's possible for them. And so I try to help clients understand those three things: their lived experiences, the emotions that come from the lived experience, and then the evidence, uncovering the evidence. Because most people hide from their stories, not because they don't think it's important, but they don't know how important it is. They don't know that because of this journey that you've been on, it actually influences how you design, or it influences why you care so much when you're designing.
Right.
Those are the things that I do try to help clients, and we take our time. The beginning of working together is not I turn on the camera. The beginning is what I call a road mapping strategy session. In that session, we sit down for 3 hours and we go really deep. Clients tend to call it a business therapy session, and it is because much like a podcast, I'm going all the way back to tell me about how you grew up. What were your
Mhm.
parents like? Because I'm looking for those lived experiences. Some of the clients I've had, they're on their second or third career. Why did you pivot? What else were you doing before? What is it that led to you making this pivot? I have a client, Jen Davidson, who was a flight attendant for 20 years. A flight attendant for 20 years and made a big pivot into becoming an interior designer. Two different worlds, right? But one thing I love about our docuseries is that we relate her 20 years of experience back to interior design, because part of interior design is holding your client's hands. And she tells a really cool story of like, I think it was her first time flying as a flight attendant and getting ready to land into Chicago. They're getting ready to land, they're almost on the runway, and then the plane goes right back up.
Mm.
And so as a flight attendant, you have all these passengers looking to you and like, wait, what just happened? Why are we going back up? And she has to make sure to tell them, communicate to them, hey, it's all going to be okay. Whereas she hasn't spoken to the pilot yet to know exactly what's happened. But she relates it back to holding your client's hand when you are um, designing a home, because sometimes there's these moments that you don't expect to happen, and you got to let them know, hey, it's going to be okay. This is expected,
Mm-hmm.
but it's going to be okay. And so with my clients, I want to uncover, I want to pull back the veil and help them understand that no, these stories are important. These lived experiences are important. And they're important because we're tying them back to the business. But it's also like going back to vulnerability. It's opening you up to your clients. It's exposing you to your clients so that they get to learn more about who you are, not just the thing that you do. They get to learn about who are you as a person, as a human being. That is my number one goal, to
Yeah.
humanize the business, humanize the person. For someone like Brad Levitt, who we see big following, but we're starting his docuseries by talking about the stroke that he had 2 years ago, right? That he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't commonly talk about. But it is a lived experience that helps us understand and see who is Brad Levitt really, or who
Right.
is Jen Davidson, or who is Amber. It is these stories that really help us see that.
Yeah. Incredible. I actually want to just go right back to your own experience with burnout, because I do believe that is so relevant to my audience. And many of the listeners have either experienced it, they may think they're like borderline in it, they might be in it. It's one of those fuzzy things that, unless I guess you're paralyzed from the neck down, you don't quite know.
Yeah.
We're making jokes about it now, but I know burnout looks very different for a lot of people, but it is really common with business owners. And so I just have a few questions that, you can maybe tell your story around. Did you know it was coming? Did you know you were in it, or that it was, or even what it was in that moment that was causing that experience when you couldn't feel, or you couldn't move from the neck down?
Yeah, the truth is I didn't have a name for it, but I felt it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
We only traced this back after going through therapy, but I was burnt out for 2 years before I ever admitted it. Before I finally ever just said, "Hey, I'm really burnt out." It was 2018. Like for sure, I can go back to that moment of like when I started to feel it, and it was a little bit of the symptoms are different for each person, but for me, it was I couldn't think straight. I couldn't sleep well. I distinctly remember 2017 because I had a conversation with a friend about it, where I was trying to figure out why I couldn't sleep. And for me, what burnout is a heightened state of stress that doesn't you don't come back down from it. Like we all go through stress. That is a
Right.
natural human thing. But there's a problem when you're constantly in elevated stress, but you don't come down from it. You don't create time to come down from it. I take 2 months off every year, which it
Mm-hmm.
used to be November, December. And even though I take those 2 months off, what was happening was that I would race to that time. I would spend these 10 months working and race to that time. And then by the time November comes, I am exhausted. And so I was
Mm-hmm.
probably going through bouts of burnout throughout, but for sure, 2018 is when I started to really feel it and was like, wait, something's going on here that I don't really understand. Um, and there was a level of pride there, like I mentioned with how I work. I was just like,
Yeah.
you know what? No, I'll just push through this. Yeah, I feel tired or I feel like, I can't sleep, but it's like I'll push through this. I'm doing okay. Like it's not like I'm in the hospital or anything, right? Until
Mm-hmm.
your body completely gives out. But for me, that's what burnout was. It was finally, and I don't think people need to get to that point, right? You don't need to. When at that point when your body is giving out, that's when in some ways it's already too late because you've been dealing with it for so long. But that's why it took me 2 years to come out of it, because I had already been in it for 2 years.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's what burnout was for me.
So I hear for you, it was two very distinct areas. It was the emotional, mental, but also physical. Like you
Mhm.
physically, your body had changed because it had been under so much stress for so
Mhm.
long,
For sure.
and there was physical symptoms. You mentioned that in therapy, you were looking to find a new rhythm.
Yeah.
How did you journey through that? Like, did you experiment?
Mhm.
Did it not come until you had your clarity around your new identity? I'm curious, what was that journey about getting your new rhythm?
Yeah, so it wasn't easy. immediately in October when I did burnout, I took 3 months off. So I was going to therapy twice a week to recover. And at first, what we started with was I would take off basically Friday to Monday. So I would only work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Hmm.
Because I couldn't physically work. Like I had no energy to work. And so I would only work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I think I had 4 or 5 clients at the time that I did let know what was going on. And then after that, once I started to feel okay again, I went to um, working a regular schedule, but then instead of taking November, December off, I would now take June and December off. And the reason for that is because then it would give me a cadence of working 5 months, taking 1 month off, working 5 months,
Yeah.
taking 1 month off. And so it was hard though. It was hard to take June off because June is like it's in the middle of the year. It's technically my busy season. But I started doing that 2021 is when we started doing that June and December. And that started to feel good. Then I went to a rhythm of still taking those 2 months off, but I would take Fridays off. Fridays off and especially not working the weekends. And so I did that for a while. But right now, where I'm at today is I still take those 2 months off. I'm actually looking at taking what will end up being 6 weeks off at one time and then another 6 weeks. But it's still something that I'm figuring out because I want
Yeah.
to make sure not to burn out. Because it's easy as an entrepreneur to be ambitious and to just say, no, this is what this season requires, right? It requires me to work really hard. We're probably in growth phase. Let me just muster through it. It's easy to do that. But I've also learned what it's like to burn out and what happens physically. And so I still am figuring it out. But the one thing I've figured out, I think, is June and December, taking that time off and just being adamant about it. This year, as we're recording this, I actually couldn't take June off. I decided to take July off. But I'm still adamant about the 2 months. I know I need the 2 months just based on my personality. I am an introvert based on the level of work that I do. I'm working really intensely with my clients. This year alone, from January, the last week of January until the first week of July, I was on a flight every week, right? It's not a cadence I want to continue. It's the first time it's happened. But again, I'm just paying attention to these things. And I think now that I know the warning signs and I know what it feels like, I don't allow myself to get to that point.
Right.
I will take days off if I need to in the middle of the week. I will start work later if I need to. Those things kind of switch on and off. But the most important thing that I figured out through therapy was that June and December, that cadence of 5 months working, 5 months off. I'm sorry, 5 months working, 1 month off. It allows me to look forward to something and knowing, okay, this is only going to last for 5 months. Like this is crazy
Right.
now, but it's only going to last for 5 months. And the thing I love most is my clients respect it. They know it. I'm upfront with them about it and they respect
Yeah.
it.
I'm assuming it's in your contract. Like you're due a schedule, like you're scheduling them out, like you're
Yep.
having these conversations early and maybe often,
Yeah.
and they're respecting your boundaries around it.
Yeah. Yeah. And as long as I have those conversations, because it can be in your contract for sure. But as long as I'm having those conversations, having it with them up front,
Hmm.
that's what makes it easier that we can plan for it. Now, like I said, this year it was just different. I had Brad Levitt to shoot in June. He had an event that wasn't going to be able to move. I happened to be speaking in London in June as well. So it was like, okay, this kind of makes sense that I'm going to move this to July. But none of my clients, when I let them know, hey, this is when I'm actually taking my break, none of them said, oh, wait, you can't do that, or that's not possible, or what do you
Right.
mean you're taking a break in July? But it's because I had that conversation with them that it allows for it to be a respectful boundary. Now, if there's a client that's gonna say to me, "Hey, that's not gonna work for me. I don't want you to take that time off," then we're not the right fit. And
Right.
that's why I think it's important to not just have it in the contract, but have a conversation because it's one thing that can get overlooked, especially as entrepreneurs. We can think, "Oh no, we have to do the work for our client." I've always been adamant about those 2 months that I take off, but I've learned to really have that conversation so that it's not, even if it's in the contract, it's not catching them off guard. And sometimes it's reminders I give them as well, like, hey, I am going to be off this July,
Right.
and it just allows the conversation to go much more smoothly.
Yeah. I am curious because in my own experience, I also am a runner, like not in real life, but like in business,
Yeah.
a runner. And unchecked, it's unhealthy. And I know that, right? And so we have strengths, and there's a light side and a dark side to every strength. And unchecked, it can kind of drive you off the deep end.
Yeah.
I'm curious if this was just about pace, or if it was also about maybe how you thought about your business or your perspective in business. I'm not sure if that question's clear. I'll give you my example. For
Hmm.
me, it's not just about pace. I have changed my pace many times over the 15 years of being in business. And I now only work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday as well. And if I work on Monday, Friday, it's because I choose to.
Great.
And I take all bank holidays and school holidays and all the things. And
Yeah.
it's all by design, very similar. But I realized it wasn't just about time off for me. It was also about like the stakes, like my thinking about the business of like, it has to be, everything's an urgent thing. Like this is going to make or break the business. Like it just didn't need to have that energy behind it. So it was like the mental energy and the physical energy. And taking time off by itself to me wasn't going to help the situation. I had to mirror it, because then if I didn't fix the mindset around it, I would take time off and then stress I wasn't working, because now's the time and you got to push and it's the next thing. So I'm just curious if you felt that same balance of, it wasn't just the pace of the number of hours you're working, but also your thoughts about the business and the pace of the business and the growth.
Yeah. It's very insightful. So there is guilt around taking time off. I grew up in a household that my father worked 7 days a week and he worked 2 jobs. So Monday through Friday, he worked as a construction worker. Saturday, Sunday, he worked as a private driver before the days of Uber, obviously. And that's what I knew, especially as a man. That's what I knew is you work. My dad had extreme work ethic. He was up every morning at 5 a.m. And didn't come home till 6 p.m., right? He had extreme work ethic, never complained about it. And so that's what I knew growing up. So starting a business and work ethic is what I know. There is guilt even today still about like taking time off, because it's just not natural. It's not something
Mhm.
that I know, because I've been through burnout. I do still have the conversations with myself about like, no, this is important. This is why I need to do it. But yeah, I think it is. It's not just about pace, but it's also about guilt. And when I say guilt, it's the guilt of I'm not working. So what am I doing? Right? Like, how
Right.
am I giving of myself during this time that I'm taking time off? And really, what the conversation I've had to have with myself is that this is me taking care of me in the same way that I take care of my clients or I take care of family. This is me taking care of me now and making sure that I'm okay. Because if I'm not okay, I can't do the work that is asked of me.
That's
Um,
great.
and so it's still it's less of a battle now, but it's still a battle. Like it's still a conversation
Yeah.
that what does this mean that I'm taking time off, and what does it look like, and what am I so, because I get that question often too, like what do you do? Like what is it that you
Yeah.
do when you're taking this time off? And for me it really is just I need to change the pace. I spend a lot of time out in nature, so I spend time walking, whether it's in the woods or just outside in the neighborhood. I spend time working out. Sometimes I'll travel. I did not want to travel this time around because I had traveled so much. Sometimes I'll go to a cabin even, and like normally I'll do that in December. I'll be completely shut off from the world. So no technology, no communication, no email, nothing. And December is usually like that. December 1st to December 31st is completely shut off. But that's the question I get often. It's like, okay, what do you do? Because many people
Yeah.
can't fathom truly slowing down and taking that time off. And I couldn't either. But I also know on the other side, right?
Yeah.
Like I started doing it because I realized I'm an introvert. I mean, I am going to need time to recoup. But then, especially after burnout, it was just like, all right, if you don't do this, your body's already physically responded to this. It could be a lot worse. Like,
Yeah.
as much as I woke up paralyzed, it could have been a lot worse than that. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't want to allow happen again. And so it's just that constant reminder and not allowing even though the guilt shows up, not allowing it to stay there.
That is the most honest answer, because I am a firm believer we cannot just decide we're not going to think of something, right? It's
Right.
like the thoughts are going to come. Are you going to let them stick? It's like, oh,
Right.
interesting. I observed the thought. I can let that thought go. So for myself, I wore it as a badge of honor myself. Like, I am naturally a workhorse. Like, I'll outwork anyone. And it's just
Yeah.
my personality and my tendency. And one day I had to decide, like, I no longer wanted to wear that badge. Like, who am I if I'm not that? And so my own personal growth journey was, not as clear cut as yours that day where you're like, this is the cutoff from burnout. But I actually use slowing down in the business as a personal development challenge because
Mm,
it's so outside of my norm. It's so contrary to like how I identify with myself. And it was so uncomfortable that I was like, oh, that's where I need to go.
right.
And so I just started with like a Friday afternoon, or I just
Mhm.
started with like, not working on a day that my son was still at school. Like, why would I not be working? The stories that we tell ourselves that stop us. So I started getting curious with it. And like you, I was like, hold on. I actually love my business. So
Right.
if I love my business and I'm a workhorse, why am I choosing to do something else? And so
Right.
then it became this whole thing of like, now I have 150 houseplants. I'm a houseplant mom. Like, who would have thought I couldn't keep one alive to save my life? But like, I got curious about, well, what other things light me up? What other things do I have interest in? What other things would I want to do if this wasn't my sole thing that I was always doing? And so I went through my own journey, and it wasn't like based out of burnout as much as it was based on like, huh, I'm running my whole business and life based on a lot of assumptions about myself. And I just wanted to get curious and get uncomfortable and challenge myself. So when I say something like I work a 3-day week, it's because I was like really guilty about it and really uncomfortable about it. And I'm like, that doesn't seem healthy. You should be able to take time off and not have those thoughts. And
Yeah.
so it was very similar to yours of like, and then you trial and error, like what feels right? What do I feel now? Like I just
Right.
did maybe 4 or 5 months where I didn't take every Monday and Friday off. I was working behind the scenes on some really cool projects that I have coming up in the business, but they lit me up and it was by choice, right? So
Right.
feeling that flow, that's what I was hearing from you is like you just have
Yeah.
to stay in tune with that flow and be flexible.
Right. What I love most about what you just said is it was by choice because
Yeah.
oftentimes we forget that we got into entrepreneurship to have the choice.
Yes.
And some way, somehow along the journey, we give up that choice. I just mentioned that the last 6 months for me, I've been on a plane every week, right? But that was by choice. Now, at first, I was like, wait, what is happening here? Is this going to be crazy? Am I going to burn out? But then I realized, wait, I'm actually having fun. And this is the most fun I've had in the 19 years I've been in business, right? But again, it was a very conscious decision as I took on more clients. No, this is a choice. Like I'm having fun. These clients feel aligned, projects feel aligned, team feels aligned, and purpose feels aligned. So it's like, why not? Now,
Why
of course, I
not?
didn't go past that limit, but it was still like, why not? Why not? Right. And so it's it's a choice still, because it was still a
Mhm.
choice for me to then tell these clients that I've taken on. I've just finished 5 projects to tell those 5 clients, hey, July, I'm not doing anything. Like I'm not doing any work
Right.
and communicating that with them. It's still a choice. Right. And so I think that's the biggest thing is that we as entrepreneurs need a reminder of is who's choosing. Are you making the choice or are you just allowing whatever happens in life to make the choice? Because for me, it wasn't a choice to take time off when I burnt out. Like I had to.
Right.
But then everything else, but after that was a choice. And before it was a choice as well. But for you as well, it was a choice. Like you realize, wait, I need a different cadence here. This isn't the
Mhm.
life I really want to live right now.
Mhm.
Let me challenge assumptions. I think we absolutely have to be challenging assumptions. I started the business at a really young age, so I had the advantage of challenging assumptions very early on because that's when I started taking 2 months off. I started taking 2 months off since 2013. And luckily I did because when I needed the time off even before the breaks, I would just take it, right? So like uh July 2014 is when my father passed away. And I remember I opened my laptop when I found out I opened my laptop and I emailed all of my clients at the time and I told them what was happening. And I said, I'm not going to be on the laptop for the next 2 weeks. I'm not going to be available for the next 2 weeks. Um, and didn't excuse it, didn't say I'm sorry, didn't say anything like that. It's just like, no, this is the time off I need right now. I'm not gonna be available. And I remember my siblings not being able to take time off because I'm still the only entrepreneur in my family. And that was the moment for me where it was like, oh, entrepreneurship is really about a choice. I didn't get into entrepreneurship because I didn't want to work for other people. I didn't get into entrepreneurship because I felt like I wasn't a good employee. It was really, I was just told I could make money and I was naive enough to say, okay, let me go after that, right? But it wasn't until 2014, almost 10 years later, that I was like, oh no, I don't want to go back to anything else because I want to have the choice.
That's
And
right.
so I want to highlight that because I think that's probably the most important thing that we've talked about today that you said, which is at the end of the day, it was a choice. It was a
Yeah.
choice to say, no, I need to find a different rhythm, a different pace. And we have that choice. The most important story that you tell is a story you tell yourself.
Mm,
And you can decide to tell yourself, hey, I have no choice. I got to do this. I got to keep this business going. Or you can say, wait, maybe there's a different way I could do this that I haven't thought of before. Let me challenge that assumption.
that is incredibly powerful. I could only just say, like, yes, and like that is the struggle that most of my clients are dealing with. Like, right there is that they have built a business that they no longer feel like they have choices with. And it's my clients love what they do. Most of them really love what they do. And in fact, when I ask them what's ideal, they're like, actually, ideal is just to work a full week and not be stressed. I don't actually envision taking Fridays off or, long extended amount of times. That's how they start. But we always end up with wanting more time.
Yeah.
And the real power in, like, well, what has to happen in the business? And I'm talking everything from boundaries, contracts, business model, structure, mindset, you name it, to build a business that you can choose to work as much as you want or pull back and have that choice is the winning. It really is. Probably I mean, I'm stumbling over my words because I hate speaking in absolutes, but I would say a majority of business owners are like, that's actually the dream because I love what I do and I want to work, but I also don't want to feel guilty when I don't want to work.
Absolutely. I'm reading a book right now, rereading it really because I've read it before. And I'm rereading it as a reminder of one of the most difficult things we as human beings have a difficulty doing, and it is subtracting. The book is called Subtract. It's easy for us to add more hours, add more projects, add more clients, add more services, but what if we subtract it? Still, let's just say hypothetically, you still want to work Monday through Friday and you decide to keep that. But what if you worked Monday through Fridays and you only worked 5 hours that week and not eight, right? Or 10, like most entrepreneurs, right?
Right.
What if you worked 5 to 6 hours? What if you worked, it's still Monday through Friday because you want to keep your body moving. Like I know old people past 70 are like that, right? They're still working just because, hey, if I slow down, I don't know if my body's going to shut down. I want to keep doing something. I want to stay active. That's fine. But
Yep.
what if you didn't have to stay active for 10 hours throughout the day, 7 hours throughout the day, and you just chose hypothetically from 10 to 3, that's when I'm going to work, right? That to me is the hardest thing. And even myself, I'm reminding myself in this season where the business is growing and I'm working on amazing projects. And I honestly feel like I'm having the most fun I've ever had in 19 years. I'm in full alignment. But even I myself am looking at, don't get caught up in just continuing to add more. What can I remove? What can I take away that will help me improve in my life or in my business, right? It's a philosophy, a principle that I adopted, especially after burnout. But to improve, remove. It's the only way to get better.
Incredible. So as we wrap up, what is next for you and your company?
Oh, that's a great question because we didn't talk about this, but it's a really great question because June and December, when I take it off, I call it my sabbatical. This year was July and December. And in my July sabbatical, I will do an analysis of the business, analysis of my purpose, where I've been and what I'm doing. Am I in line or aligned with my purpose? In this past sabbatical, one of the decisions that I made is that Traditionally, yes, I run a video production company, but this is truly a leadership development company that has video as a deliverable. And I'm leaning more into what that looks like, what that means to lead my clients, truthfully. That's a part of my purpose, to lead and empower
Mhm.
entrepreneurs to have relentless courage. And I realize the conversations that I have with my clients behind the scenes are in that way, but being much more intentional about that leadership development part. Um, and just for me over the last 20 years, almost 20 years, what that's looked like, even in how I've led myself. Because the leadership that I like to talk about is not just leading as far as leading a team and leading a company. That's important. But you must first learn how to lead yourself before you can lead others. And I really want to hone in on that and go deeper with it. Not just adding more clients for the sake of adding them, but clients who are looking for a deeper way to show up in their business. Um, that is hard to figure out. It requires a lot of depth and it requires a lot of deep work. Um, and so that is, I am transitioning the business to that more of a leadership development company than a video production company. But that's kind of what's next for me is really leaning into that over the next 18 months and being intentional in having those conversations.
Incredible. I cannot wait to see how that unfolds because I'm sure you don't have all the answers, but it's great
Right.
to get curious and you're on that journey. How can our listeners learn more about your services? And can you give a little bit about who your ideal client is for your services?
Yeah. So to learn more about me, the work that I do, two places really. It's my website, judecharles.co. And then I'm most primarily active on Instagram. That is where you can actually see some of the behind the scenes of my work and the kind of clients that I work with. The clients I love working with are running design related businesses. So they are an interior designer, architect, or builder. They are running a team of at least 4 people, and they are in a growth phase or they're rebranding or reinventing themselves. And they want to be able to not just get more clients for the sake of getting more clients, but to walk in further alignment with who they are and how they show up in their business. And so those are the kind of clients I like to work with. They are purpose-driven entrepreneurs, ambitious entrepreneurs who have a deep why and just want to share that why with the world. That's people like Brad Levitt or Stacy Deborah from Virginia.
You nailed her
Or
last name. Like I worked with her for years and I don't think I ever nailed it right once. Good job.
yeah, it's not an easy last name. But yeah, I mean, even with Stacy, like I actually sent her this voice note the other day of like, because I didn't know this until we started working together, but she has a son, she has 3 kids, but her middle son, I don't know if he's even 13, 14 years old, but he already has the idea that he's going to help take over the business when his mom retires, or he's going to run the business when his mom retires. And it's an interior design business. He knows nothing about interior design. Um, but I said to her, one of the great things for me in doing the work that I do is I get to document the legacy now, not just the legacy when you retire or when you die. It's the legacy you're living right now. And she's established this legacy for her son who already wants to take over the business. And I was like, that's something to like really sit in that. Yes, you're using this docuseries to get more clients, to grow your business and all those things, but really sit in the fact that you've already established your legacy. Like many people think about that decades after, or it's an afterthought. Um,
Mhm.
that's the work that's the people I love to work with, is the people that understand the bigger picture. And although there is a business result out of this, there's also this intangible emotional result that will help you document the legacy that you're living right now.
Incredible. Thank you so much for being a guest. Thank you for sharing your own experiences being an entrepreneur and your journey. And I know that it has really helped a lot of people feel like I'm not the only one. I'm not alone. And there's light on the other end. And you shared so many wisdom nuggets. I cannot wait to go back and listen to this episode again, myself as a listener.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jude.
Thank you for having me, Amber. And again, if you don't hear anything else that we've said on this podcast, you have a choice. Choose which way you're going to go and how you want to go about it.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. I sure hope you enjoyed the Behind the Business series as much as I did. And Jude was the best first person to bring these stories to life because he is an exceptional storyteller and he knows the power of storytelling. And as you heard in the interview, I was captivated. I have met him on several occasions over business events and trips and things like that. And his stories are so real and authentic and powerful, and he wants to do the same for you. He wants you to share your story, and he knows how impactful it is to attract the right clients to you, the clients that know you, understand you, the know, like, trust factor, all through storytelling. But what I knew when I invited him to be a guest was that his stories were way past just telling us the value of a story, but really real life examples that can be so impactful and actionable in your own businesses. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So based on the conversation that I had with Jude today, what are you going to take action on? There was so many pieces in here, even for me. But perhaps what you needed to hear was that you have a choice. You have a choice in how you run your business. And now that you know and you can see how choice has had such a big impact in my business and in his business, what choices do you want in your business? And how are you going to approach being a business owner differently so that you have more freedom and choice? Or maybe you wear working really, really hard as a badge of honor, as I did, as Jude did, and you're willing to put that down and look deeper and find out what is behind the identity of working hard? Who are you? How do you really want to show up, not just in your business, but in your life? Whatever your key takeaway was in today's conversation, I want it to move you into taking action so that you see a change in your business. If you are new here, I want to welcome you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss another episode. And if you've enjoyed today's conversation with Jude, be sure to share it with a fellow business owner who you think would find it valuable. Hit that share button, send a text, send a DM, let someone know that you're thinking of them and that you enjoyed today's conversation and you think they will too. So that's my straight talk for today. Until next time, have a productive week.